Good afternoon. Welcome to the September 12th update on the tropics. As always, these thoughts are mine alone, and in making decisions regarding our systems, please refer to the National Hurricane Center, your local weather office, and your local authorities for all the latest information pertaining to you. Well, we have a couple of systems out here today. We have an upper level low that is trying to form into, or dig down and maybe become a tropical cyclone as it moves off to the northwest here. Expected to interact rather closely with the Carolinas, but for right now, not our chief concern here. We do have Invest 93L, which has died due to dry air and high wind shear. As you can see, this upper level low is inducing a lot of southwesterly flow, and then we have another wave expected to come off the coast rather soon and move off to the west, but we have several days before that is of any concern. Right now, our only big concern here is Tropical Storm Nicholas, which is now located in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, heading north towards the Texas coast. And if we look a little closer at our system here, we got recon in the system earlier today, and much like the satellite presentation suggests, they did find a rather elongated system here. You can see that there are northwesterly winds coming out on the far southwestern side of the system here, and then an immediate wind shift out of the south here, associated with all the moisture surging to the north. And so we have our center located somewhere in here, and we just had an advisory on the system, and we'll get to that in a second. But you can see that the system is still a little bit elongated, not very well organized right now, but it is being aided, if we go to the water vapor loop, by an upper level trough, as there is significant divergent flow aloft. You can see our trough here over Mexico right now, and the flow is primarily out of the south, which has lightened a lot of the shearing flow here. And you can see rather anticyclonic flow aloft here. You can see that it is all the feathery clouds expanding out of the system are moving in a pattern that is indicative of an upper level ridge here, which is allowing for the system to be well ventilated and convection to continue to fire here along the system's northeastern side. And that has been the case with the system for the past couple of days here. A lot of convection has been firing on the northeastern side, and it has favored a more rightward part of the track here. And the system is gradually drifting off to the northwest here. So, if we look at model data here, go back a little bit here. We're going to look over the current, this is relatively current here, upper level wind flow. You can see our trough here, the kink in the flow right here, and then you have the winds out of the south here that are turning to the east here. And we have a little bit of upper level convergence right here. And so this becomes shearing flow as the system comes off to the north here. And you can see that this jet of sorts over Texas begins to start imposing a little bit of shear upon the system, but it may be a little too late, as right now the system, and for the next 36 hours here, really will be under rather light upper level flow. And this system is rather small, so it will maybe be able to survive this upper level onslaught of winds here as the system approaches the coast, and it may not have, the shear may not have enough time to really weaken the system too much as it approaches the coast. And so if we look at the 3-day track here, and we can see that the system comes up rather close to the Mexican coast and the South Texas coast, but ultimately landfalls on the Central Texas coast here. And you can see that hurricane watches are now in effect for the Central Texas coast, stretching from Corpus Christi all the way to Port Lavaca and eastward to, I think, Port O'Connor and Matagorda here. And so the system will likely be making landfall around 1 a.m. Tuesday. If it's a little right or on the rightward side of the track here, maybe making landfall a little later in the early morning hours of Tuesday. But right now, the National Hurricane Center forecasts that the system will be around 65 miles per hour at landfall. And while not explicitly shown in the forecast, they do suggest that the system may be able to approach hurricane strength before making landfall here. And this will be a rather close call for Corpus Christi, as the system will be practically right next to the area. But due to the fact that we are dealing with a more eastward weighted system here, you can see that the west side of the system here is not as convectively active as the eastern side is here. the hurricane force wind field, if there is any that would develop, would likely be on the eastern side of the system. So really, if you're on the right side of the track here, you would see a lot more rainfall and a lot more heavy wind here. And so we look at the peak surge graphic here. This is brand new peak surge graphic out of the National Hurricane Center. You can see that storm surge, water rises extend from the mouth of the Rio Grande all the way to Intracoastal City, Louisiana, although the water rises between High Island and Intracoastal City are rather nuisance flooding here, 1 to 3 feet. But if we go from Port O'Connor to San Luis Pass here, this strip of the Texas coast would be likely experiencing pretty significant water rises, storm surge values between 3 and 5 feet here, and that is due to the uptick in the intensity forecast here. The HWRF did forecast a hurricane that is on the very high end of the intensity envelope here, so the National Hurricane Center has upped the intensity forecast just a little bit to 65 to 70 miles per hour. So, but wind is not the primary concern here. Really, the main concern with this system is rainfall. And if we go to the National Weather Service office in Houston here, you can see this updated rainfall forecast according to the WPC. They stripped this directly from the WPC here. And you can see this purple here outlining 10 to 15 inches of rain south and east of this line that I have just drawn here, and potentially 20 inches of rain in the far southeastern parts of the Houston metro area and Galveston and even southeast Texas here, as you can see Beaumont and Winnie, Texas, now in the 15 to 20 inch range of significant rainfall here. And so flash flooding is going to definitely be the primary concern here as the system comes up to the north and east, and you can see why here. As the system makes landfall, it does slow down rather dramatically, and it's still within the range of the coast, so it will still be bringing southerly flow and moisture into the southeast Texas region, which would prolong the rainfall impacts for the system, because you can see that the system is still in Texas come Wednesday, and so this will be making landfall late Monday night into early Tuesday morning here, and so it has a good 2-ish days over Texas, which would be rather bad, as rainfall totals with the system would be rather high for a lower end system. But that does not really the category of the system and the strength of the system. It may be forecast to be only a tropical storm here as it makes landfall here, and it may be able to become a minimal hurricane. Who knows? But the primary forecast hazard for the system is flash flooding, and you definitely need to be paying attention if you are in southeast Texas, even stretching westward into Corpus Christi here. This whole region of coastline really needs to be paying attention to the possible rainfall totals here. And if we look at the moisture field forecast from the GFS model, so remember what we were talking about with the westerly flow pushing the system and making the system look a little lopsided here and preventing the system from rapidly intensifying. Well, you can see here that the surface center of the system is located here, and the mid-level center is just a little bit tilted over here. And if the system is able to deepen quickly here and become a little stronger, then it would likely not affect the system as much here if the system were able to intensify somewhat, and so the system would look a little more symmetrical. But you can see that all of this rainfall here, this is all rainfall, all very deep moisture aloft here, and that will be able to produce rather efficient rainfall totals. And so if you're east of the track here, notice that southeast Texas is not explicitly in the track here in terms of where the center will go, but primarily speaking, most of the rainfall will be on the eastern side of the system, extending well into Louisiana. So if you're in Louisiana here, and you're not under tropical storm watches or warnings here, you still do need to be watching the system, as the rainfall totals will be extending well away from the center here. Lastly, we're going to be talking about the tropical storm force winds as they may arrive. This is the most likely arrival time for tropical storm force winds. You can see that Monday 8 a.m. the system begins to encroach upon the coast, and around 2 p.m. tropical storm force winds begin to be felt along the coast here, and then around Monday 8 p.m. you can see that tropical storm force winds are well within are well inland at this point, and most areas along the south central Texas coastline here are being affected by tropical storm force winds. So if you have any preparations that you need to make, you should definitely be doing those throughout the day Monday, and probably have them done before the afternoon on Monday here. And if you are planning on evacuating, and it's pretty unlikely at this point that there will be mandatory evacuation orders issued for the system along the immediate coast. But if you are planning on leaving, you should probably leave before the afternoon on Monday and get out of the area, as conditions will begin to get rather rough come Monday afternoon. That's all I've got for now. I'm going to look back at the visible loop here of the system as it continues to develop, and please stay safe, and please stay tuned to the National Weather Service offices in Corpus Christi and Houston and even Brownsville here as this system comes northward. This is going to be a pretty significant system. It does not, remember to take this seriously, even if this is only a tropical storm. Remember that Harvey did most of its damage while it was a tropical storm. Allison did most of its rainfall damage as a tropical storm. And while this system will not be exactly the same as those two systems, just remember that it does not require a significant hurricane to do a lot of flooding damage, because that is an entirely separate part of the impacts of a system here. It doesn't matter how strong a system is, it is always going to be able to produce rainfall, and sometimes it will be able to produce significant rainfall. And so this is the case with Nicholas here, and you definitely need to be watching this and be listening to your local officials as this comes ashore. And that's all I've got for now. This is probably the last video on the system, as I will be chasing this system actually. And please stay safe, and thanks for watching.